Brain, it is a complex structure, and the phenomenon that are taking place inside the brain, they are more complex than anything that can be compared with it. So here, we'll be talking about some of the electromagnetic phenomenon that take place inside the brain, uh, uh, or while there's a neural activity going on. As we know that inside the brain, there are neurons, and these neurons are the carriers of neural activity inside the brain. And this activity is transmitted to every portion of the body. So, to start with, this the human brain, it's a marvel of complexity, and it functions as a vast network of interconnected neurons. And these neurons communicate through electrical and chemical signals. Now, these electrical signal, or I should say, these electrical activities, they give rise to some rich kind of cognitive processes, emotions, and behaviors that define us as individuals. This study of this electromagnetic phenomenon in neural activity, it seeks us to understand the, the interplay of electrical and magnetic interactions that are taking place inside the brain, and that are being acted as the basic functions uh, of the way that the brain functions. So, to start with, action potentials. Now, what are these action potentials? It's basically between the neurons. There is a language, and that language has electrical in nature. So we call these action potentials as the electrical language of the neurons. At the heart of electromagnetic phenomenon in a neural activity, there lies the action potential. I mean, there has to have an interaction between the neurons, but this interaction has to have some sort of communication, and that communication is purely electrical in nature. And a rapid and transient change in electrical potential that travels along the neurons, what it causes an action potential. When there is a gradient, that when there is a rapid gradient in electrical potential, it gives rise to action potential. So when a neuron receives a sufficient amount of input from the signal, its membrane potential depolarizes. That means before receiving a signal, it is in a polarized situation. But the moment it receives an exciting kind of signal, it depolarizes, and leading to the opening of voltage gated ion channels. So this depolarization gives rise to voltage gated ion channels. So this influx of positively charged ions, like sodium, calcium, they cause rapid depolarization, generating an action potential. And this action potential propagates along the axon. The action potential serves as electrical language of the neurons, allowing them to communicate and transmit information across the brain with astonishing speed and precision. Now, what are these ion channels? These ion channels, they regulate the neural excitability. They are central to the generation and propagation of action potentials, as we discussed before. And these are specialized proteins embedded in cell membrane of neuron. These ion channels control the flow of ions in and out of the neurons, determining its electrical properties and excitability. Now, excitability refers to the state of depolarization. And there are different types of ion channels, and different types of ion channels play distinct roles in regulating the neuron's process to incoming signals and modulating its firing rate. The opening and closing of ion channels, driven by the voltage changes, or they certainly contribute to the complex dynamics of neural activity. So there has to have some kind of opening and closing of these ion channels, and they give rise to this complex dynamics that is there uh, in the brain. Now, synaptic transmission, a kind of dialogue, the electrical and chemical dialogue. Now, when an action potential reaches pre-synaptic terminal of a neuron, it triggers the release of neurotransmitters into the synapse. The tiny gap between presynaptic and postsynaptic neurons, a tiny gap, okay, is developed between the two categories, presynaptic and postsynaptic neurons. This process is known as synaptic transmission, and it is a pivotal aspect of electromagnetic phenomenon in neural activities. Now, these neurotransmitters, they diffuse across the synaptic cleft and bind to receptors on the postsynaptic neutrons, initiating electrical and chemical signaling. So there is a delicate dance of ions and neurotransmitters. This forms the basis of information transfer in the brain and enabling complex neural circuits and information processing. Now, neural oscillations, these are the rhythms in the brain. So there are some rhythms going on. They keep on going as long as there is this biological life in it. Now, another fascinating aspect of electromagnetic phenomenon is the neural oscillation. It is very rhythmic pattern of electrical activity observed in the brain. Different frequencies of neural oscillations, such as alpha, beta, theta, and gamma rhythms. These are associated with various cognitive functions and states of consciousness. These oscillations arise from the coordinated activity of large population of neurons, and they play crucial role in orchestrating communication between different brain regions. And such activities that are going on in the brain, they can be captured, and they can be subjected to some kind of mathematical analysis, and the outcomes can be correlated with some theory. So, in order to study the neural oscillations and other electromagnetic phenomena, researchers employ non-invasive techniques, and these non-invasive techniques, where they make use of electrodes and scalp, and they use some techniques known as EEG and EE. What is this EEG? It records the electrical activity of the brain through electrodes placed on the scalp. And MEG is another technique. It measures the tiny magnetic fields generated by neural activities. Now, these powerful tools allow us to visualize and analyze brain waves, providing a valuable information about cognitive states, mental disorders, and the effects of external stimuli on the brain. And in conclusion, the electromagnetic phenomenon in a neural activity, it provides a window into the mesmerizing intricacies of human brain. The interplay of electrical and magnetic interactions between neurons enables the brain to process information. It enables the brain to form memories and govern over every thought and action. So, understanding these electromagnetic phenomena is crucial for uh, for for understanding the mysteries of the brain function, and for the development of novel neurotechnologies and treatments for neurological disorders. And there's always need to to captivate the frontiers, and look for the secrets of the brain, and the electromagnetic actions that are going inside the brain. And these electromagnetic actions are orchestrated, and these 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 electromagnetic uh, actions should be measured precisely, so that we can have the cognitive understanding of